Good Monday morning, everybody. Let's get this show on the road. The combine is coming to a close. And yesterday we had the last position group do their on field workouts, and we definitely got some things to say about what transpired over in Indy. So, this video, we're going to be taking a look at interior offensive linemen, guards, and centers. Now, keep in mind that we're not 100% sure who's going to play what position in the NFL right now. As an example, some people think that Peter Skoronowski may end up playing interior in the NFL, even though he was a tackle in college. There are going to be definitely other guys who move around as well. So we can only guess, and sometimes it depends on what team they go to. Certain players might play tackle on one team, but play guard on another team. Some players might play guard on one team, center on another team. So interior offensive linemen, I basically just took my best guess with these players, trying to figure out where they're going to play, and I tried to estimate whether or not they would at least be able to play those particular positions well. So mainly we're looking at centers, but I did want to spend a little bit of time talking about some guards, because while I think our guard position is taken care of for the moment, we do need depth, and we do need some insurance for the immediate future, because both of our starting guards are in the last year of their deals. So, with that being said, we're going to take a look at some guard and center prospects and understand that a lot of these guys may end up being somewhat interchangeable. At the very least, some of the guys who I talk about as guards, not too hard for them to move to center a decent percentage of the time. The problem with centers playing guard is their arms tend to not be long enough, but we don't totally know where these guys will end up as of right now, but we have a better idea after the combine, but I feel like you don't know until they actually get into the league. So, first of all, just to address this real quick, this video, I'm not going to talk about O'Cyrus Torrance or Steve Avila. Those are two guard prospects that a lot of Seahawks fans are getting excited about. Me personally, I'm not really excited about either of them. I thought both their combines were okay, I guess. Nothing over the top exciting, nothing that really motivated me to want to spend a high pick on those guys. But they didn't do anything bad either. I guess Torrance had a really slow 40 time, but that was kind of expected to me. So I'm not really going to talk about those guys. I know a lot of people are thinking about them. I'm not really interested, and I thought their combines were just kind of whatever, personally. So let's take a look at a collection of interior offensive linemen who did turn my head with what I thought were positive combine performances. These first two guys we're going to take a look at here are probably going to be guards in the NFL, and they're both going to go later in the draft in all likelihood. And they did really well at the combine and may have secured, at the very least, status as a draftable player. First guy is John Gaines II. He actually played some guard and center at UCLA. He played center and right guard and some right tackle, I think. But if you look at his profile as a player, it wouldn't shock me if he ended up as a left guard. He's not particularly big. Like, you look at the size, 6'4", 303 pounds. That's like left guard or center. But he also played a lot of right guard in college, so he may end up projecting there. The thing with John Gaines is that he was the best interior offensive line athlete, maybe even the best overall athlete of any offensive lineman. There might have been one tackle that was an overall better tester than John Gaines. So he almost ran the 40 in 5 seconds flat, which was second among interior offensive linemen. His 10-yard split was 1.73. That was number one of all interior offensive linemen. His vertical jump, 32.5, that was number one. Broad jump was also number one, 9 feet, 6 inches. His 3-cone drill was tops among all interior offensive linemen, and so was his 20-yard shuttle, 7.31, 4.45. The dude killed every drill. So for a guy who may go late in the draft, that's a pretty good little lottery ticket to buy, isn't it? On a similar note, you have Sidney So from Eastern Michigan. This is a much bigger guy, and this is also a guy who will, even after this combine, I don't know if he's going to get drafted, but this combine definitely helped his case. Bigger guy, 6'5", 323 pounds. So more of a right guard in terms of his size. If I had to guess, I would say this guy ends up playing right guard, but he moves well for a guy who is the size of a right guard. 40-yard dash, 5.07, one of the best times of any guard period. 1.8, 20-yard, 10-yard split. I don't know why I keep saying that. Nice vertical jump for a guy of his size, 32 inches. 9 feet 2 inch broad jump, solid. 3-cone drill, 7.62. 20-yard shuttle, 4.69. Not bad. For a guy who has about 20 pounds on the guy we just looked at, that's not that far off. So I think Sidney So definitely turned some heads with his athleticism. And, excuse me, at this point, I think there's actually a good chance he ends up being a late flyer in the draft, like John Gaines too will likely be. I could see a scenario where Gaines goes in like the 4th and So goes in the 6th, maybe. Okay, those were the two guards that caught my attention. Let's take a look at some centers here. There were two guys who I thought did well. And one thing I want to say is everything is kind of relative. I don't think any of the centers blew me away. And I'll talk about the disappointments from the center position in a little bit here. But of what we got in terms of combine performances, Luke Whippler, I thought did good. He weighed in respectably, 6'3", 303 pounds. Should be able to move well enough to play in this offense. His center scores in terms of his athleticism were the best this crop had to offer, probably. 40-yard dash, 5.14 seconds. That's okay. That's workable. And again, it was one of the best center scores in this draft. And some of the guys that scored ahead of him were guys who were like playing for, Princeton and stuff like that. 10-yard split, okay, 1.83. The jumps, he's not a super good athlete, but it's decent, I guess. It's workable. 30.5 inches, 8 feet, 10 inch broad jump. 3-cone, actually nice and solid. His 20-yard shuttle was pretty good as well. So not necessarily a tremendous athlete, but he's the best this crop has to offer. So Luke Whippler, it was graded on a curve, but you probably have the top score in the class right now. I don't know if Whippler is actually my favorite center in this class, but I think he probably had the best combine. And as of right now, he needs to be looked at as one of the top centers. The other center that I thought did well in this combine, maybe even in terms of changing my perception of him a little bit better than Whippler did, was Ricky Stromberg of Arkansas. He was a guy I had my eye on through a lot of the college season. Similar size, 6'3", 306 pounds, so no issues there. The 40-yard dash was not particularly great, 5.26 seconds. His 10-yard split, however, was actually better than Whippler's. Whippler's was 1.83, so he had better acceleration than Whippler. And remember, this is a center. How often is he going to be in a dead sprint for 40 yards down the field? That happens maybe like once a game, maybe once a month. Maybe not even that. I don't know. His vertical jump was nice. 32.5 inches. Broad jump, good amount better than what we saw from even Whippler. 9 feet 3 inches. So he's not fast, but he's explosive. He has good agility and acceleration. So maybe not the best center in this draft, but I think he had the best combine. These results are nice. And again, these centers, it's not a great group. It's just not. So it's not that hard to be the best of the bunch. But Ricky Stromberg is another guy who I would not mind targeting. I don't know if he can be a day one starter, but this combine definitely makes him a lot more interesting to me coming up. Okay, so now we move on to my disappointments on the interior offensive line from this combine. Unfortunately, I got to do it. John Michael Schmitz, that was a letdown. That was a letdown from John Michael Schmitz. Big time. I thought a good combine could launch him firmly into the middle late first. Now I don't even know if he should be in the first period. Decent size, 6'3.5", 301 pounds. But keep that in mind. The guy is not big. The guy is not some big hulking dude. He's 300 pounds. Lighter than Whippler, lighter than Stromberg. And yet, his 40-yard dash, did he barrel roll down the entire 40-yard runway? 5.35 seconds? Okay, I understand that the 40-yard dash is not a huge deal for a center, but this guy is slow. This guy's just like waddling down the lane here. his 10-yard split was not radically far off from the previous two centers we looked at, but still a little bit slower. His vertical jump, he didn't even get to 30 inches. Again, it's not a huge difference from Whippler and Stromberg, but it is a difference. Broad jump, 8 feet, 8 inches, less than Whippler and Stromberg. 20-yard shuttle was, I mean, okay-ish, I guess. But I don't see anything here that makes me think, okay, this is going to be a guy I spend a first-round pick on. This is a generational center talent. No. Now, that's not to say I don't like John Michael Schmitz anymore. Obviously, he's a very good center because of what he has done on a football field. I get that totally. John Michael Schmitz proved over his career in Minnesota that he's a really good center. Very consistent, well-rounded as a player. He has plenty of good attributes, and I wouldn't say no to taking him at some point in the draft. But this is not a generational center to me anymore the way Linderbaum was last year. Linderbaum went in the first round, barely. So if you're looking at a guy with this many potential athletic limitations, a guy who is not a very good athlete for his size, can't do it. So yeah, I'm very disappointed in this, although it does make him a little easier to get. So maybe I shouldn't be disappointed. But I was looking for Schmitz to maybe solidify his status as the number one center in this draft and being on the same tier as, the obvious golden example would be Linderbaum from last year. But it just didn't happen. And I think that largely because of this, we kind of have to go back to our priors on this center class. It's just not very good. And John Michael Schmitz may still be the best center available, but no longer am I looking at him as somebody I would be happy to have at number 20. Now I'm looking at him maybe in the second round, and even then I wonder, can I do a little bit better at another position and go cheaper a little later? Another guy who let me down a little bit was Olu Oluwatimi. This is a center who I had my eye on most of the year. Still, I'm not saying that I dislike him, but he did not test terribly well. His size, I mean, he's a little bit oddly shapen, I guess you could say. He's a little bit shorter than the previous guy, 6'2.5", weight 309 pounds, 310 basically. So, little bit heavier and shorter than some of the previous guys. That's not a big deal. But his combine didn't go terribly well to my eye, 5.3840, so very slow. His 10-yard split was even worse than Schmitz's 1.86. Vertical jump didn't even get to 29-inch. Didn't even get to Schmitz's 29.5. His broad jump was a little bit better, 9 feet 2 inches. But given that this center is relatively devoid of top center talent, Oluwatimi setting the combine on fire would have definitely pushed him up. I don't really think that it did. It's not terrible, but I don't know. He's just slow, and he doesn't seem particularly explosive either. Like, I can live with a 40-yard dash like this from a center, but your 10-yard split, especially in this offense, that matters. Remember, we are building, in theory, an offensive line of guys who can move, guys who can play in space, guys who can get out of the phone booth. And Oluwatimi doesn't seem like he'll be that guy. Final guy I want to talk about in this video on the disappointing side, and this isn't that big of a deal because he wasn't a super highly touted prospect anyway, is TJ Bass. Not terrible necessarily, but at the end of the day, he's not that big. 6'4", 317 pounds. Like, that's a good probably 15 pounds lighter than Damian Lewis even. And the combine results not good enough to make up for the fact that he's not that big. 5.4840 times, so basically a decent amount slower than even Oluwatimi was. 10-yard split, 1.86, so not great acceleration either. Vertical jump, not even 29 inches, so worst vertical jump we've seen in this video, I think. And broad jump, okay, 9'1", I can live with that. But given the fact that this guy isn't, a hog molly, this guy isn't like some 330-pound right guard who's just there to, like, knock people on their butts, I don't know. I'm not feeling it. Like, granted, I don't think there's a ton of hype around TJ Bass as it is, but he just doesn't fit. We need athletic interior offensive linemen for this offense, I believe. TJ Bass is not it. So that's pretty much it in terms of the combine stuff. Those are the guys who moved their stock positively and negatively for me. Let me know what you guys think. Unfortunately, it's not a great crop. It's a pretty good crop of guards, maybe. I don't mind the guards, but the center crop it's disappointing to me. See you guys later. Go Hawks.